What's up, everyone? Sports Snippets, Dennis Sullivan. It is the 7th of June, Sunday, late Sunday. Just sitting around today thinking to myself, who are the best of the best of the best quarterbacks ever to play in the NFL? I'm here today to give you my best lineup, my most honest list I could possibly come up with. If you do like the content, of course, of this video, please don't forget to go ahead and hit that like button. It would be greatly appreciated. If you haven't subscribed yet to Sports Snippets with Dennis Sullivan, that's something you may want to think about as well. So I'll leave that part up to you. But let's get into the whole topic of who were the best quarterbacks of all time in the NFL? I mean, this is not an easy subject to talk about because there were so many great ones. And here's the real hard part when it comes to the NFL top quarterback list. And that is, guys, the statistics of, say, definitely the 70s and before, the 80s as well, even the 90s. There's a tough comparison to those statistics of today. The game has certainly changed. The rules have been tweaked here and there that have definitely favored productivity overall on the part of the quarterbacks and at the quarterback position. And what we've seen are 5,000-yard passing seasons and things like that, mainly in the yards thrown for, as far as like total yards that they throw for, not just in a game, but I mean, it just seems to add up. I mean, if you threw for over 3,000 yards in a season, back in the 1980s even, if you threw for 3,000 yards back in the 1980s in a season, you were thought of as like this like awesome quarterback. I mean, you throw for like 3,200 yards now, and you play pretty much and start pretty much every game, it's like, forget it. I mean, they're basically looking for your replacement. You may not even get the chance to last until the end of the season to throw for those 300 or 3,200 or 3,400 yards. So, guys, we want to keep that in mind. So I did my best to put everything in perspective and discuss. I mean, the two things that are timeless are Super Bowl wins and appearances. We could put that like in one category, and MVPs even that were won. So whether you're playing in the 50s, 60s, 70s, or today, no one can take that away from each quarterback. Meaning, if Tom Brady over here, who happened to win 6 Super Bowls, no one can take that away from him, meaning we can't say, well, he won 6 Super Bowls because he's playing in the quote-unquote modern era of football. No. He won 6 Super Bowls. I mean, that's timeless, in other words, okay? As is an MVP, meaning you're the most valuable player in the league. Very important, another timeless statistic. So I did my best, guys. I mean, I'm going to tell you right now, we're going to start off with the honorable mentions that I have. And first of all, I know I'm going to be leaving out a few players in the honorable mentions. It does get very difficult to say, for example, a Johnny Unitas, who I really have never had the chance to watch play on, whether it be in person or on television. I did see his highlights. I know he did play in Super Bowl III for the Colts. He was in that game. And Johnny Unitas really regarded as the best quarterback of his era. Played in the 50s, 60s, and technically also into the 70s. But he's not on my top 5 list. So some of this, yes, is mainly a list technically from 1970 to the present, because it's tough for me to say, is a Sammy Baugh, was he better than Peyton Manning? I mean, I really can't say for sure. So yes, it's my all-time top quarterbacks, but we're going to say from 1970 to the present, just to be fair to everyone. there's a few players like a Patrick Mahomes. Now let's start with the honorable mentions. You look at a Patrick Mahomes, I mean, of course, his overall ranking right now is in the incomplete category because he's only played a couple of years, but he is certainly on his way to becoming one of the best quarterbacks ever to play in the National Football League. So, we can't put Mahomes, though, at number 4 or something like that in just a couple of years. But he got the Super Bowl win last year. He's off to a great start. He's got the MVPs. I mean, he's putting up tremendous numbers as well. Dan Marino just missed the top 5. So now we get in a little bit more of those that just missed it. He had a tremendous career, put up big numbers before there really were the statistics and the numbers that we see today. Dan Marino was amazing at the quarterback position. Never won a Super Bowl, though. He remains just outside my top 10. As does Johnny Unitas, as we have also mentioned. Warren Moon is another interesting player. I mean, he's one of the all-time greats without question. When you consider the fact that he played in the Canadian Football League and lit it up in the Canadian Football League, put up all kinds of statistics, all kinds of numbers, comes to the NFL and is easily one of the top quarterbacks in the league. His performance was amazing, and we might even, had he played a few more seasons in the NFL, because this is an NFL ranking here, this is not, these are the top all-time quarterbacks in the National Football League. With all due respect to the Canadian Football League and to other football leagues, this ranking is National Football League only. Warren Moon could easily be knocking on the door of the top 5. He kind of already is, and should definitely be considered as one of the top quarterbacks of all time. Johnny Unitas already mentioned. We got to give him a bunch of respect. I mean, he simply is a little bit before my time, and I just can't quite put him in there. And the guy had a great career, all right? He was a great quarterback, arguably the best quarterback of his era. Let's get a little bit more now into the 70s. So the 70s saw a number, the game was starting to change. The throwing of the football down the field was becoming more and more common. The game was getting more exciting in the 1970s, and we saw, I started to get into my Staubach, so I said kind of like we saw as a lead-in to Roger Staubach. But we saw guys like Roger Staubach, Terry Bradshaw, Fran Tarkenton. I mean, these guys were amazing quarterbacks. The 2 Super Bowls between Staubach and Bradshaw, 2 amazing quarterbacks and 2 amazing matchups in Super Bowls. That was actually the football quarterback rivalry, if you will, for a while. I mean, Staubach was amazing. If you ever get a chance, watch some footage. If you're not quite as old, say, as me, or maybe you're a younger football fan, when you get a chance, watch some footage, some recording of Roger Staubach playing. The man was he was like ahead of his time. I mean, he really was tremendously talented. Won 2 Super Bowls. Terry Bradshaw, 4-time Super Bowl winner, led his team in the Pittsburgh Steelers into 4 Super Bowls. As did, Ben Roethlisberger, also for the Steelers. He won 2 Super Bowls. They were both kind of similar in that they liked to throw the ball down the field. Bradshaw got really good at throwing the ball down the field. Of course, he had really good receivers, did both Terry Bradshaw and Ben Roethlisberger. But Bradshaw, I mean, he had Lynn Swann was tremendous, as was John Stallworth. I mean, he had some really good receivers, did Terry Bradshaw. But we got to put him in the top all time. The man won 4 Super Bowls. Ben Roethlisberger still playing towards the end of his career. I mean, if we, just look at his age, I mean, he's getting up there as far as being a starting quarterback in the National Football League. Ben Roethlisberger, tremendous career, and he's an honorable mention too. 2 Super Bowl wins. Fran Tarkenton, I mean, he was kind of like the Drew Brees before there was a Drew Brees, meaning he was the guy back then putting up the stats, putting up the numbers. For years, as a young football fan, Fran Tarkenton was the guy who had the records. He had the yardage passed records a few decades ago. He was the guy everyone was chasing prior to this explosion of passing yards mainly, and in a sense, passing career touchdowns. We must not forget that there used to be a 14-game season. I can't say the exact year it changed to 16. Do know it was sometime, I'm going to say in the mid to late 1970s. So that didn't help necessarily a guy like Fran Tarkenton, okay, because he's now missing 2 games per year that he could have been adding to those numbers. Tremendous quarterback. Bart Starr, I was a little bit surprised, but now that I think about it, I shouldn't be surprised that Bart Starr appears on many lists. Now, Bart Starr, as you may recall, is the winner of the first 2 Super Bowls, okay? Plus he won 3 other championships. So Bart Starr's a 5-time champion. His numbers, of course, and it's sad to kind of see, well, his stats don't really add up, but I mean, yeah, Bart Starr played in a different era. You're not going to be throwing for 5,000 yards a season in 1963. It's just not going to happen, guys. It just wasn't the way the league was set up. It was basically impossible to do that. So again, Bart Starr getting a lot of recognition, and really, and rightfully so. And it made me think back. So I wanted to throw that in there as well. Steve Young was another all-time great, passing and running for the 49ers. Not quite in the top 5. Didn't quite have the total number of years played as far. Remember, he also, now when I say played too, I mean, remember he was backing up Montana there for a little bit as well. So Steve Young, clearly though, one of the most talented quarterbacks ever to play at the position. And Dan Fouts too, another honorable mention here. He was almost like the Marino before there was a Marino. You know, this guy was peaking like a couple of years prior to the arrival of Dan Marino. Or you can almost call him like Marino West, playing for the then San Diego Chargers. I'm still getting used to saying that they're now the Los Angeles Chargers, or not the San Diego Chargers. But at the time, the San Diego Chargers, Dan Fouts was amazing. He also had some great wide receivers, but his passing attack, total team game plan that he was part of with Don Coryell as the head coach, that was probably easily one of the best offenses I've ever seen, even to date. And Dan Fouts was the orchestrator of that offense, and he was a tremendous quarterback, certainly an honorable mention. Let's get to the top 5, guys. I got Farr and Breeze tied at number 5. Now you look at Farr, I mean, he's a 3-time league MVP, did play in 2 Super Bowls, won a Super Bowl. Brett Farr, I was thinking of just putting Farr at number 5, but I couldn't leave Breeze off because he has won a Super Bowl. And although, yes, it is the modern day statistics, the modern day setup, he is now becoming and has become this amazing all-time quarterback when it comes to all-time statistics, all-time numbers. We can't ignore it. We just can't ignore what Drew Brees has done in terms of career productivity, and the fact, I mean, and we can't penalize him because he has won a Super Bowl. And he certainly has come close to getting back to the Super Bowl. As we recall a few years ago, and then there was that one game that that they were right in there till the very end, and they lost that game. That was an NFC Championship. I mean, he's had some really good teams these last few years. Will Drew Brees get back to the Super Bowl again? He might. I mean, he's 41 now, which is amazing. So we'll just have to wait and see. Peyton Manning, 2-time Super Bowl champ, comes in at number 4. 2-time Super Bowl champion. He, of course, got that second one. First one with the Colts, second one with the Broncos right at the end of his career. 5-time league MVP. So the argument could easily be made that Peyton Manning should be higher than 4th. I had a tough time between 3 and 4, but I'm going to explain why in just a moment. I mean, I could have really put Elway and Manning tied at 3rd. Manning was tremendous. He has won 2 Super Bowls, and the 5-time MVP really speaks for itself. Here's the thing with John Elway, and why I put him at number 3. I think that of all the quarterbacks I've seen, you can really, and maybe there's a way I can do a video at some point in the future. John Elway, this guy was like, this guy would take teams, and it wasn't so much the 2 Super Bowls he won, to me, as a fan. How about the Super Bowls that he didn't win? Now, I'm not done with this part yet. The Super Bowls that he didn't win, where he took teams to the Super Bowl that really didn't have any business playing in the Super Bowl if it weren't for John Elway. I mean, this guy like carried teams on his back into the Super Bowl. As we recall, they went up against that tremendous New York Giant team, 1986 team. Game was played early 1987. They lost by like 20 points or something. They did hang in there, did the Broncos for a little while. Elway was obviously the focal point of that team. That other, if we fast forward maybe 4 or 5 years later, they get destroyed against Joe Montana and the San Francisco 49ers in the Super Bowl. But I'm telling you right now, guys, I mean, for a 2-time Super Bowl champ was John Elway. He did get a Super Bowl MVP, along with, he did have a league MVP. This guy did more with less. That would be my best way to explain it. And his running ability was tremendous. His elusiveness was amazing. The guy would avoid sacks. He would do things that were not in the box score. All these quarterbacks really did great things that were not in the box score. But I think we could put John Elway at all those little like extra, categories that we just didn't see. But for example, while I finish this thought, I'm sorry. By extra categories we didn't see, I mean certain things like avoiding a sack or even throwing it away when he didn't have anything there. He, maybe avoiding the interception. He threw, from what I remember. I mean, he wasn't great at avoiding interceptions. He seemed to be somewhere in the middle there. He did throw some interceptions. I don't have the total here for this video, but once again, John Elway. I mean, if I'm starting a team, he's right up there at the top of my list. Pick a quarterback all time to start your team, brand new in the NFL. I might choose John Elway. Number 2 all time, we got to go Joe Montana, 4-time Super Bowl MVP. 4-time Super Bowl champion, 3-time Super Bowl MVP, 2-time league MVP. If you want a quarterback in a big game, get to choose one to lead your team into the Super Bowl. I really think I might go with him, even ahead of Tom Brady. I would probably put maybe a tie with Brady Montana, maybe give the edge to Montana, simply because Montana in big games was absolutely tremendous, and he was the ultimate big game player. Not that Brady really wasn't, but Montana, I mean, the guy was 4-0 in Super Bowls. He was tremendous. I mean, he was just a tremendous player. Again, he technically did play in a different era. I mean, the guy was mainly a 1980s quarterback who also would finish his career, played last 2 years as the 90s approached, or into the early 90s. Okay, so Joe Montana, I mean, it's a safe pick, I think, for number 2 all time. I mean, the guy was amazing. And actually was on everyone's list as number 1 if we went back like 10 years ago. Prior to the period of Brady almost every year in the Super Bowl. All right. Which leads us to number 1. Tom Brady. I mean, guys, this is coming from a Miami Dolphin fan here. We cannot ignore. There's no debate here, in my humble opinion, in my sports fan opinion. Tom Brady is the best quarterback all time. I'm basing this on his accomplishments. The guy has accomplished more in the NFL than anyone else. And there really isn't a debate, in my opinion. There is not a debate. There's not a debate. The guy has won 6 Super Bowls, played in something like 9 Super Bowls. He's a 4-time Super Bowl MVP. He's even a 3-time league MVP. Remember when Brady won his first Super Bowl against the Rams, and then the early part of his career? What did we hear back then? Back in the early 2000s, we heard, oh yeah, Brady, Yeah, he's a really good game manager, and yeah, I mean he'll be good. Of course, they have to surround him with all these great players because he'll win you games and even championships. He's a great game manager. Well, guess what? That whole label of Brady being a great game manager quickly went out the window once he started putting up huge numbers. Once he started winning MVP awards. I mean, the guy's won 3 league MVPs. He had that ridiculous season the year that they had Moss. And actually lost the Super Bowl to the New York Giants. That was, I believe, the year that they were on pace to almost have a perfect season, or would have had a perfect season if it weren't for that loss in the Super Bowl. I mean, arguably one of the best teams ever, but they lost the Super Bowl. And Brady was phenomenal. He was phenomenal. It was ridiculous that year. Look at his statistics of that season. Ridiculous. So yeah, we got to put Tom Brady. I have to put Tom Brady number 1 all time. The guy's accomplished more. I remember real fast story for you guys that have made it through the end of this video. I remember I was at the game back in the season that directly followed Brady's first Super Bowl win against the Rams. So I'm saying, this would have been, I'm guessing, yeah, this was the 2002 season. I remember the Patriots were playing, of course, here in Miami against a pretty good Dolphin team back then with Ricky Williams, had a good team. And I'm saying to myself, it was a warm day. It had to be maybe like early October, late September. It was still very warm here in South Florida. And the Patriots come out and they got these heavy looking jerseys, the dark blue and all that. And I'm like, oh no, they're going to wilt in this heat, and it almost looked like that was going to happen. It was kind of a close game, and I'm saying to myself, yeah, but I mean, Brady got the Super Bowl. We know that was one of those deals where everything clicked. That's what I was thinking back then, right? Everything kind of clicked, and he was in the right place at the right time. They're not going to be, they had a nice run that was all emotional. They're not going to beat and they beat the Dolphins that day. My eyes opened up wide. I watched Brady play huge in the second half, and I was sitting there going, okay, they may have something in New England. You know what? They may have something now. In case I didn't figure it out before, that now it's like, hello sports fan, hello Mr. Sports Snippets. They got something going on there in New England. So that's it, guys. That's the way it is. And of course now Brady is only a couple short hours away from me here. He's playing in Tampa now as he's into his 40s. The fact that Brady and Drew Brees are both over 40, still playing at the level that they're playing at is truly amazing, completely amazing. I don't know if we're going to see 2 guys playing at that level, at the same level, both over 40 at quarterback in the NFL in many years. I don't know. Is this something that we should get used to seeing now? I can't say that, but I think it's completely amazing, and it's just really is great to watch. I kind of like to see Brady do well in Tampa. That would be kind of cool. But anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed the list. Hope you enjoyed the discussion. I'm sure you don't fully agree with my top 5, and that's why we have these things, to be honest with you. It's not who can have the best list. It's maybe just to start up conversation. Let's start thinking football. How about that? Some NFL. Let's get that going. Leave some comments below if you like the material of this video, you like the conversation and some of the points and the content, really, of the video. Go ahead and hit that like button if you feel the need to do so. Until next time, this is Dennis Sullivan saying so long, and we'll talk soon. Thanks again. Bye-bye.